The Jane.
Okay, welcome everybody. We're going to start this meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Board, I would like a motion to approve the agenda for August 18th, 2022 as presented.
So moved.
Mr. Bertrand and Mr. Cook. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I'll throw the meeting over to you now, Ms. Jones.
Thank you, Mrs. Ling. Tonight we are recognizing 2 students who completed a summer internship with S.M. Wilson on the Francis Howell North construction site. You're going to hear more about this internship program later in the agenda during the Prop S update, so I'm going to keep this part very short. We have one of our interns, Sanjana Verdana Parthi, could not be here with us tonight. She's already departed to begin her next chapter at the University of Science and Technology in Rolla. But Sam Sturgis, who's a senior at Francis Howell Central this year, is here with us. And I'm going to call him forward, Sam, if you want to come forward and just tell us a little bit about your experience and your biggest takeaway.
Yeah, so I'm Sam, I'm going to be a senior at Francis Howell Central this year, and let me just start this off. This was just a great opportunity. Pretty much they allowed us to go in, we had to be right on the construction site, see all the progress, which was substantial in the month we were there. It was just really cool to be able to see, to match with the diagrams, like what was actually going on, to be able to see the rooms being constructed and built up. And it also introduced me to architecture, because I was always planning on going into computer science, computer engineering, something along those lines. But now, definitely drawing a diagram, something like that, is something I'm really going to look into, all because of this. So I just want to say a big thank you to you guys.
Yeah, you're welcome to stand up and take a photo if you'd like.
Alright, I'm gonna have you guys close. All right, again, you'll hear a little bit more about that internship a little later in the agenda. I'm going to kick it over to Mrs. Katie Vargas to present our best practice today.
Well, good evening, everybody, and what a great segue. Congratulations, Sam, on your internship, and that's exactly the line of work that I do for the district, is helping students really find at younger ages what their interests are, what their aptitudes are, and finding the careers and the training that intersect those two. So really, since the advent of this role in 2018, in the fall of 2018, the mission has always been to develop real-world applicable practices for our students to get out into our communities and embrace experiential learning. And some of that can be done in the classrooms. A lot of it is done outside of the classroom. Oh, do I? Yes, I do. Thank you. So we got to work right away, and our strategic planning really catapulted this work into motion those first couple of years prior to COVID. But you can see we've developed a pretty robust grades 6 through 12 timeline on of what every student in our district can ensure that they experience grades 6 through 12 in the areas of college and career readiness. And we are currently continuing to work on that model for grades K through 5. Big mission behind this work specifically was to make sure that from Francis Howell High all the way to Francis Howell North, district-wide, our students were experiencing the same opportunities. So just a little bit of our existing program. I highlighted some things I specifically want to point out in my short amount of time with you all tonight. We currently have a long list, as you can see, of awesome opportunities for our students. The SM Wilson internship just, again, being one great example of that. I'm really proud of our job shadowing work and our partnership with Career Explorations Alliance in the county. We currently have 152 seats annually for our students to go out into the community and whatever work industry they're interested in, and shadow a partner for half a day to a full day. We are continuing to grow the funding for that so that we can expand the opportunities, because there's always a wait list. We also do an evening webinar series, and really COVID drove us towards that model, and that's actually, I think, a blessing that came out of COVID, actually. We have, over the course of the school year, upwards to 6 to 8 parent-student webinars, and we have anywhere from 25 to 125 in attendance at every evening webinar. Topics range from financial planning for college to essay writing for college to apprenticeships and the availability of those in our state, et cetera. So it's a very broad range, and it covers interests for all students and the paths they might want to pursue. We're also doing a lot of work around SCORE and U-Science, and SCORE is our platform for college and career readiness, where students can start exploring as early as 8th grade the different training programs out there for the paths that interest them most, from technical colleges, 2-year colleges, ranging up to 4-year and professional schools. The U-Science portion of that is our aptitude assessment, and we are working diligently this year to secure the analytics portion of that assessment so that not only will students get their results after taking this aptitude and interest assessment, we as a district will get those results as well, and that will ultimately help us drive the programming that we provide in our district. It will also allow us to better advise students on their next steps after they leave us. And I also really love our career focus field trips. We have really grown in that area as well. I'll be talking about one in particular here in a minute, but again, we're really trying to achieve meeting the needs of all of our students. So whatever that path might be, 4-year college, 2-year, or right into an apprenticeship trades program. Just some brief high-level overview of some workforce facts currently in our state, and these are taken directly from our Department of Labor in our state, our merit system. You can see here that our overall annual salary is right around that $45K mark. And you can see the breakdown from low, mid, and high below that. Low-skill occupations is classically defined by jobs that are available to students with high school diploma or GED equivalency. Mid-skill is any type of training beyond a high school diploma up to a 2-year associate's degree, and our high school occupations are 4-year degrees plus. I want to point out one thing quickly on this slide, and that is you can see now through 2028 that our job openings, a large share of our market, will be in that mid-skill range. And that's important, and I'll explain here why in a minute. Some of those top mid-skill areas are listed here, ranging all the way from our skilled trades to transportation and logistics to restaurant and food industry. These are going to be the heavy hitters between now and the end of this decade. So why focus on mid-skill? Focusing on mid-skill does not mean our district is going to start not focusing on our professional, post-professional roles and positions. We will continue to push and encourage students to take AP courses, rigorous curriculum, but we also want to focus on the reality that college education is not getting cheaper, and our labor market is begging us for mid-skill positions that pay right at our state salary, or if not higher. So these reasons right here are why mid-skill right now is going to continue to be our focus through this school year, in addition to the great work we already do for our students who know they're going to be four-year college bound. So now what? This is the work. This is the crux of really where we need to start shifting our focus to achieve that. Our community's mindset and our key stakeholders right now, I feel like we don't know what we don't know. And to create the awareness that these jobs exist and they're lucrative and align with a lot of our students' aptitudes and strengths is an important piece of this work, so that our families, our educators, our students are aware that these opportunities exist. And not only that they exist, but they're equal in the eyes of our society, and how our laborers and our community members in mid-skill jobs are just as equal of value as any other path that a student may take. So awareness and destigmatization are really important right now, and I'll continue to do that work in the coming years. Some brief highlights of the things that are in the works specifically for this year. We're working on expanding our work release program to also encompass opportunities for students to work with our local carpenters union after school or before school, as well as our plumbers and pipe fitters. We are also working on expanding our pre-apprenticeship opportunities, specifically in the geointelligence department field. That's huge and hot right now. They're building a beautiful building in North City right now. Our Department of Defense is encroaching upon our city, and they need employees. They need skilled, trained employees, and we want to provide them to them. We will be providing this year, it's in the works, in all district, in district, just for our students only, 7th grade career fair with our partnerships at Junior Achievement. And I'm really proud of the elementary work that we have achieved for this year, and that is every single 5th grader will get to attend the Junior Achievement BizTown experience, which is basically a microcosmic town. And we've had schools in the past in our district that go every year, and we've had schools that unfortunately have not been able to attend. So we have secured the partnership and the funds to do that. So I'm really proud of that work. And we will also implement this year a monthly career speaker series for all 10 elementary schools. Just want to highlight, this was a huge win for our district this past school year, specifically in the trades industry. We did execute our first ever Build My Future event, and I know some of you were there, and I thank you so much for your time. I know how busy you all are, and it felt so good to see familiar faces there that day. We had multiple schools from several different counties attend, lots of industry partners and government and community agencies all chipped in to make this happen, to create awareness for amazing career opportunities in the construction trades. 85 plus exhibitors were there. We had 850 plus students attend, $70,000 worth of sponsorship raised for next year's event. And we had 150 plus volunteers. I'm happy to report we had one senior sign a contract that day, and we had 0 injuries, which is what we wanted. You will see in these pictures that it took place at the Family Arena. We filled that bad boy up, and we went outside as well. It rained, we didn't care. And every exhibit was interactive. That was part of the agreement with our exhibitors. They would bring something interactive and fun related to their work for our students. Safety is key. We started with a safety presentation. And then you can see students all wore a uniform shirt, so we could tell who was a student and who was not. And I'm just going to briefly breeze through these to show you what some of the exhibits were. We had obstacle courses. We had bricklaying. We had people creating prefabricated toolboxes. It was really cool. Dog houses that were donated to blanking, but the major animal shelter organization. We had a visit from Governor Parson there. So that was really neat to see, and he took his time. He was there for a good hour, hour and a half, walking around, which I loved, and he spent a lot of time with students. The event was very successful, and as such, we decided we wanted to expand it. We will be covering 19 different counties next school year over the course of 2 days versus 1. We will have 2 daytime school-only events and 1 evening event open to the general public for our unemployed and underemployed community members. If you want more information, the website is there. It looks like we will have the goal will be about 3,500 to 4,000 students over the course of those 2 days come to the event. That's it. Thank you for your time, but I tried. Thank you very much.
Just like, if I could just add just a little shout out to Katie. Katie's been with us, I guess, starting her 4th year, or just completed her 4th year. You want to help me, Katie? I think you're starting your 4th year? Starting your 5th year. Okay, completed 4th. Katie is a one-woman show, so everything you saw in that presentation, that really is just her work. We could have multiple Katies in our district lifting the work that she's done. And she is just a one-woman show. She doesn't take no for an answer. You won't find someone more passionate about this work than Katie. She partners phenomenally with our counseling departments in our schools to make sure that our kids have access to these opportunities. And I think one of the things we value most about Katie is the passion that she's brought to our district, but the way that she listens to our kids and families to figure out what it is that they need. And then she is tireless in her efforts to figure out how we can meet those needs from the kids. And the work that she's talked about destigmatizing it and making sure that it's not just college readiness, but career readiness, and making sure that all of our kids can figure out what that next step is and that we're supporting them the same way. She's very accurate when she says that is the work that she's passionate about and making sure that we're doing well for our kids. So proud of the work that she does.
And I'll also add, I know we recognized her at the end of last year for this event, but the Build My Future event, she actually co-planned it. She and one other person, it was their vision. They went and saw it in another part of Missouri, worked on bringing it here, waited through COVID, and continued to work through it. So really it is a celebration of Katie and her contribution as a leader to making this happen and bringing it to St. Charles County and to our students, and hundreds of hours outside of what we would normally ask anybody to do in their job. So we'll continue to celebrate that. It was a fantastic event.
Okay. Next up, we will have our patron comments. During patron comments, residents of the district and staff members are invited to address the Board of Education on concerning issues related to the school district. Speakers are called forward in the order of sign up, and each speaker has 3 minutes to make their remarks. Please remember that only one speaker is allowed at the podium at a time, and combining time or giving your time to someone else is not permitted. The board appreciates that you have taken the time to come this evening, and we value both your input and perspective. I would like to remind everyone that we expect the speakers will remain civil and respectful when giving remarks. If anyone fails to comply with board policies, regulations, and rules, we reserve the right to cut those 3 minutes short. For your convenience, our 3-minute time clock is ready, and we welcome Amy Easterlin to step forward.
Thank you. Good evening, board, administration, teachers, parents, and other community members. I've been a resident of the district for 20 years, and I am the parent of a 2021 graduate and a current high school student. Before I get into my comments, I do want to say we are so grateful for all the amazing teachers and staff that have worked with and educated and inspired my 2 children over the years. We're very happy in this district. But lately, I've been hearing a lot, kind of in social media, about some conservative activists that are coming after what they like to call gender ideology in our schools. It seems that this idea of our children being somehow groomed into transgender identities might turn into the next hysteria in our public schools, similar to some of the arguments we've heard in this very room about critical race theory. And frankly, I have to tell you that this terrifies me. Before you go along with the hype that these woke teachers are trying to confuse your kids, I would beg that you consider the harm that this can do to the kids in our school who are transgender, and they do exist. They are in our schools today, and they have just as much right for respect as any other human being. They certainly do not deserve to be vilified to advance someone's public agenda or political agenda. I know everybody has the right to their opinion. You have the right to think that transgender people are some kind of evildoers that want to invade women's sports and bathrooms. Or you might think that this is some kind of fad. But if you truly think that, I'd actually encourage you to do some research or maybe even get to know someone who actually is transgender. I think you'd find that they're just people. And there are a lot of medical studies out there that suggest that gender is simply not it's scientifically not as simple as we once thought. But here's the bottom line. Every time you roll your eyes about this idea that gender is a spectrum, every time you post a cruel meme or make a joke on Facebook, and every time you judge parents who are just trying to do their best for these kids, you're hurting real people. I would ask that we all revisit the lessons from kindergarten and try harder to be nice. And finally, I would like to feel reassured that all of our board members are committed to protecting all kids. Are you committed to protecting our transgender kids from political ideology that seeks to, at best, invalidate their experience and their identity, and at worst, vilify them for political gain? Our kids deserve that from all of us. Thank you.
Next up, we have Liz Puster.
Close enough.
Sorry.
It's Poister. Nobody ever gets it right, not even my own family. Hi, board, admin, folk. My late father was a teacher, a musician, and a songwriter. Though he passed when I was young, I have a cassette tape of a song he wrote inviting the listener into worlds of whimsy. A world where one day you could be a pirate, the next day exploring the ocean, and the next sailing the Santa Maria. The song was titled Read a Book. He wrote it for his students and for my brother and me. As I grew up, I had teachers who encouraged me to read all kinds of books. The Outsiders, Catcher in the Rye, Death of a Salesman, and To Kill a Mockingbird. I learned about the lives of authors and poets like William Shakespeare and Edgar Allan Poe and Toni Morrison. These books not only broadened my perspective of the world as a kid growing up in very South County, but challenged my thinking and ultimately enhanced my critical and analytical thinking skills. Board, I have serious concerns that my kids will not have these same experiences in our district. Recent actions by so-called concerned parents groups, threats against teachers and librarians, and growing concerns among teachers and librarians about whether they will be targeted all cause me to raise my alarm. When did we become a community that casts school librarians as villains in a play? Why are teachers packing books away because they fear condemnation? These are people who chose a profession for their love of education and a desire to positively impact the world around them. An educator's job is to help their students learn and grow, and sometimes growth is uncomfortable. Sometimes learning is not all sunshine and white picket fences. We must have enough confidence in our educators and librarians to equip our kids with literature that meets them where they're at and, yes, perhaps push their boundaries. Our educators deserve that level of trust from parents and the community. They do not deserve to be made antagonists, labeled groomers, or run out of the district. As a parent and a citizen, I implore you as a board to support these educators and denounce those who seek to report them to police because of books that may be on their shelves. Promote a culture of diversity and challenge in learning. Our world is complicated, and we have a responsibility to prepare our children to approach it with critical eyes. It's more important than ever for students to read books that challenge their thinking and help them understand that the world is bigger than themselves. This process may be complex and uncomfortable, but that's how we grow and build a better future. So please denounce those who would seek to limit them. Protect our educators against those who seek to make them the enemy. They are not the enemy. They are cherished, non-renewable resources who have the drive to set our children up for societal success. They must be respected, supported, and funded. They need more than a positive social media post. Demonstrate action to let them know that you have their back against those who would seek to tear them down and drive them out. Thank you.
Next up, we have Kirk Wolf.
Good evening. On July 5th, Francis Howell did a Facebook post celebrating a recent article on fox2now.com regarding top schools in Missouri in which Francis Howell was listed as the number 10 school in our state. That would be great, except for the fact that it's not true. The article says that we are, quote, 68% reading proficient and 65% math proficient, unquote. The problem is that these are old 2019 scores, and the district well knows it. Consider our math scores. There was no testing in 2020, but the latest scores we have, 2021, show that we dropped 12 points in math proficiency. This means that we have roughly 2,000 fewer students grade level proficient in math, 2,000. Now, as everything that happens, they blame the pandemic. The problem is that most schools in Missouri only drop 5 to 6 points. Like, for example, Fort Zumwalt, who we now trail in math proficiency. This is historic. This has never happened before, not even close. The trend lines, unless reversed, indicate that Fort Zumwalt will soon pass us overall academically. The district has now received the scores from this spring's test, but are embargoed. This is bureaucrat speak for we're not telling you. Does the district have a specific action plan to correct this massive failure? We met with Dr. Rumpus a few weeks ago and asked that question. He had no answer. We also discussed this horrible CPM math curriculum that the district started to roll out. You may have heard about this, where students in class break up into small groups and teach each other. This program came out of California back in the 90s, and if you do your research online, you'll find out that it has been widely discredited and now is only used by a relatively small number of school districts. We understand that a group of our math teachers have lobbied to eliminate it. And here's the kicker. Dr. Rumpus told us that CPM was implemented here without following district policies. So I'm here to ask this board, wake up, do something and fix this. And here's how. Number one, immediately demand the resignation of our Director of Curriculum and Assessment. There need to be consequences. 2, give the superintendent objective metrics for academic performance and only one-year contracts contingent on meeting them until we are once again a truly top 10 school district. For anyone who wants to join others to improve our schools, please go to francishowfamilies.org.
Next up, we have Ken Gontars.
Before delivering my speech tonight, I'd like to thank Dr. Rumpus and Jennifer for sending an email that was sent very late this afternoon. The administration is attempting to reach out, and we thank you. I'd like to read into the public record an email that was sent to Dr. Rumpus, Dr. Hawk, and to the Francis Howell School Board requesting a comprehensive Prop S audit. Here's the email. Francis Howell Families was encouraged to see the new administration conduct the Prop S Citizens Roundtable last week. It was an important first step in addressing the transparency issue that has solely been missing in recent capital expenditure projects. While addressing transparency is critical, we believe it equally important to understand other issues regarding the management or mismanagement of recent Prop S projects, the Francis Howell North High School in particular. We cannot find ourselves off by tens of millions of dollars for capital projects again. Understanding what went wrong and avoiding any such repeat in the future will go a long way in regaining the trust of the community. This can be accomplished by creating a report, flaws, and suggested corrections in the original planning, bidding, and oversight process. We understand the time-sensitive nature of moving ahead expeditiously. Addressing the needs of our school is critical. Key factors must be carefully weighed. Potential impacts to education, safety and health concerns, conditions of existing equipment. With all this in mind, Francis Howell Families believes it prudent to request that a comprehensive Prop S audit be conducted and that the board and administration approve it immediately. The objectives of an audit will allow us to move forward sensibly, carefully, judiciously. It would allow us to determine an optimal bid process and methodology, incorporate best practices, provide lessons learned, give insights of things to avoid, establish accountability, deliver budget consistency, rebuild stakeholder trust. Finally, we realize that the district will likely need to ask the taxpayers for an additional significant funds in the near future. From the extensive and overwhelming feedback received from our supporters, we believe it unlikely our stakeholders will approve additional board funding without assurance that the same mistakes will not occur. Let us move forward with assurance, with facts and figures that will regain confidence and trust, with cooperation and collaboration that will show us working together with the ability to spend future spending responsibly and sensibly. And thank you again. Good job.
Next up, we have Jared Pillsbury.
Thanks for that, Ken. Great.
Thank you.
So I struggled a little bit with what to say tonight, so I'll start off with a thank you. So some of these I'll echo what Mr. Gontars had just said. So thank you to the administration for kicking off the Citizens Roundtable series. Thank you to the board members who attended and joined in on the discussion. I thought it was a great first session, excellent, great forum to getting to know other members of the district by building connections, community, and understanding as we seek out solutions to challenges facing Francis Howell. I look forward to future roundtables and know we'll all do our part to communicate. That was a big thing. That was a little inside joke there, Mary smiled. These important meetings to district stakeholders and encourage participation and engagement. So I want to spend some time tonight asking a fairly straightforward question, but first allow me to set the table. There are challenges facing the district. Here's a few: student behavior, teacher shortages, teacher relations, and concern over district finance. Many stakeholders in the district have noted these challenges. So my question is, why? Is there any focus on limiting books and filing police reports through a recently launched website when we already have a solution and process in place here? We need new solutions and new policies and approaches for these other more pressing and real challenges facing the district, and these book bans is not one of them. Are we really going to waste law enforcement's valuable time filing police reports against teachers, librarians, and even board members when we have challenge processes in place and a variety of communication mechanisms at our disposal? I appreciate that Director Cook attended the Citizens Roundtable, took time to listen to valuable feedback from Francis Howell stakeholders, and I hope as much value is gained from the surveys that were to follow. What I don't understand is why Director Cook would give time and attention to a website set up by people largely not in our district to encourage everyone to notify law enforcement over a book. The site also encourages homeschooling and unenrollment when his is a commitment to this district. Once again, we have a process in place for books, but student behavior, teacher shortages, teacher relations, concern over district finances, these are real problems. These are pressing issues, and they need attention. You campaigned on district finances, most certainly. So did you, Director Bertrand. What policies and solutions will you all offer? I'm asking you as well. I suspect a great many of your supporters, as we've heard here tonight, voted for you based on finding answers to these very questions. So the question is, so what are you going to do? The district anxiously awaits your response and how we as a community can help. Thank you.
Next up, we have Chris Brooks.
Board, it's good to be back. Sorry I did not see Doug here tonight. It'd be great to see him. I too want to echo everyone's appreciation for the district holding the roundtable, Dr. Rumpus, Joel's, everyone else who participated in that. I do want to add one comment, though, to the other comments on that, and that I hope the board takes an active role in managing the oversight of projects going forward. It's one thing to understand that Dr. Rumpus and the rest of the administration is attempting to be more transparent and open and honest in communication. But let's be frank, if you're in the middle of the process and you're responsible for the funds in the past, or you're too new to really know what was going on, it's important to have someone independent to provide that sort of oversight and audit and analysis of what went wrong. This is not to cast blame. We've already had a couple of board members on the board. We've had the CFO and the superintendent leave. So I think we're in a good place to start from scratch on this, but it's important to understand what went wrong so that it doesn't happen in the future. So I think it is important that as the district goes forward, you provide specifics to the community, and that the board also asks for those specifics of what's going to change and how we're going to be ensured that we don't have these kinds of problems again in the future. We understand inflation, pandemic costs rise, but I think we all understand that the costs in our district grow substantially higher than those in other area districts and other public works projects out there. So it's important to understand what went wrong so we can prevent a repeat of that in the future. Now, segueing from that topic, it appears that several of the prior speakers are very concerned about a certain website that's out there that's sharing information about books and libraries. Now, I had no involvement in the website, but I find it amusing because if you recall, last year, various patrons in the district brought forward concerns that there were sexually explicit and over-obscene materials in the school libraries that did not support the educational goals of the district, did not support the policies of the district, did not support in any way, shape, or form things like learning about Shakespeare or Edgar Allan Poe. We're not talking about those books here, and you know it. Okay? We're talking about books published in the last 10 years with certain groups that have certain texts or images in them that are not appropriate for developing students. And in fact, those images have now been criminalized in state statute, so I hope the district is moving to deal with that. But I want it understood that when we brought forward these concerns, we were told, well, there's a process in place by which you can restrict your kids from checking out those books. Well, the problem is we don't know which books we need to restrict. So there is now a website provided by another organization, yes, that lists those kinds of books with which parents might have concerns. And it is entirely appropriate for that group to promote them so that parents can understand and take advantage of the district policies that allow them to prevent their kids from having access to that material while still allowing it to be available. I don't believe that anyone in Francis Hall families or anyone in this district as stakeholders have called for police reports to be filed. And it is unfair, rude, and incredibly passive-aggressive for certain speakers preceding me to call for that. So I hope, folks, that you understand that we must be aware of boundaries, we must set limits, we must provide proper educational material that supports the goals, policies, and curriculum of the district and our libraries. Thank you. Good job.
Next up, we have Samuel Young.
Good evening. Some patrons have been calling for the hiring of another administrator to be a director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm here basically to speak against hiring such a person or to have current staff, assigned for that. My criticism is that the policies in discussion under DEI do not actually help the intended students. As an aside, a recent patron complained of Christopher Rufo, including many concepts under the 3 words critical race theory. I would have thought that people were familiar and comfortable with that practice, considering all that is stuffed under the 3 words diversity, inclusion, and equity. So I'd like to give some examples of equity policies that hurt more than they help in the time I have. One concrete example has already been tried and rejected by the parents and staff of this district. That was the elimination of challenge math courses at the middle school level. The justification was closing advanced coursework equity gaps, and the district planned to not stop at just middle school, but to eliminate challenge and pre-A courses in 7th and 8th grade. The intent was to go beyond even that and control enrollment to such courses to artificially meet racial demographic goals. The pushback to this was spectacular. In fact, I haven't heard those who push for equity defend the elimination of advanced coursework classes. Yet these are the kinds of policies that will return with the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. The next example comes from another Missouri high school. They hired a DEI director and immediately shifted to something called standards-based grading. This approach is supposed to help equity gaps by grading what the student actually knows or masters in an academic subject rather than grading on work completion. This means that the steps in the learning process aren't graded, but only the final knowledge results. Sounds okay, except in application, students quickly learn that they didn't have to do the homework or quizzes that were part of the learning process. Also, studying and test prep suffer because standards-based grading encourages allowing retests. A student told me that students didn't do the homework or study. There was little they could do to motivate them, and an attitude that I'll just retake the test was common. This equity effort doesn't really prepare students for life after high school because there were no consequences for not meeting deadlines. Students also didn't learn how to study or prepare for assignments. DEI policies are often more about shifting students and data around to get the numbers to look good, but basically these policies have a poor record of actually helping the intended students. Our students deserve better. Thank you.
Next up, we have Carrie Zolkowski.
You got it that time. Nice job. All right. Good evening, school board members, district staff, and engaged community members. Board members, I want to once again thank you for volunteering your time to support all students in the Francis Howell School District. Making decisions for a district this size is no easy task, and I appreciate your commitment to do what's best for all student needs. We moved to this district at the strong recommendation of my former boss 17 years ago, and my wife and I have been very happy with the high-quality education that my children have received at both Harvest Ridge Elementary and Barnwell Middle, and we look forward to our experiences as my daughter and son begin at FHN next week. Over the past 9 years, Francis Howell School District has consistently provided a challenging and relevant curriculum for my children while also creating a safe space for them to grow socially and emotionally. I want to thank each and every FHSD teacher for taking the time to get to know my kids, providing high quality and rigorous instruction, and balancing their individual educational and social emotional needs. Francis Howell School District teachers are amazing. Here's to another great year. I'm also thankful for classes with diverse learning materials and books that represent all different types of individuals. My children and the other students deserve a district with a strong and deliberate commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Please continue to make this a priority and invest in the work to make these values strengths in our school districts. Finally, I wanted to make sure to give a shout out to Dr. Rumpus and other district administrators for organizing the Citizens Roundtable last week. The event was extremely well organized and focused on working together to come up with real solutions. Everyone in my small groups throughout the evening had a chance to share their input and concerns, and I felt my opinions were valued and recognized. Our district needs to continue to work together to engage the community, and events like this are a great start. My only suggestion would be to try to continue to be inclusive and perhaps seek out an even more diverse cross-section of our community so that many different voices are included and heard. Thanks again for your time.
Next up, we have FHEA.
Good evening, Dr. Rumpus, Executive Cabinet, and members of the Board of Education, parents, and educators, and patrons. It has been exciting to see all of the buzz in the buildings. Our custodians and maintenance did a wonderful job getting our buildings ready despite the number of vacant staff positions. We are all looking forward to students coming back to school. We are still struggling to hire many support staff positions. When we don't have these positions filled in our buildings, it makes it very difficult for educators to do their jobs. Despite all of that, the feel in the district is much more positive than it has been for many years. Thank you, Dr. Rumpus, for the positivity. Now let's move forward, show kindness, and let's start a wonderful school year on Monday. Thank you.
FISPA.
Good afternoon, board, committee members, district. On behalf of FISPA, I would like to acknowledge all the hard work put in over the summer months to get us all ready for this new school year. The schools look amazing and the support staff are ready to tackle another great year. Let's give them a shout out as we see them around the building. We support you, support staff. Let's do this. Thank
you. Next up, we will have our MSBA board report.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Missouri School Boards Association's board report for the month of August. We thank you for the opportunity to share some news and information during a few minutes of your board meeting. We begin with a look at the opening of a new school year in Missouri. Our public schools will start the new year this month with great anticipation, but in an environment that continues to be challenging. Among those challenges are COVID-19 remaining with us, school districts throughout the state facing serious issues with teacher recruitment and retention, and many students dealing with mental health issues. Yet school boards, administrators, and teachers continue to do the work of educating the 900,000 students in Missouri's public schools. The National Superintendent of the Year, Missouri's own Dr. Curtis Kane, told board members and administrators attending MSBA's Igniting Great Ideas Summit, the work may be grueling at times, but it's worth it. He also said in the current environment, it's critical that board members and administrators continue to tell the story of public education.
And others are filling the void in terms of the narrative, in terms of the story of what we are doing. We have to get back to our road shows, addressing multiple audiences, getting out in the road, on the road, pressing flesh with handshakes, talking to people, sharing factual stories in terms of what's happening within our schools. Not the stuff that people hear on cable news, what's actually happening in our schools, and amplifying what already exists.
Kane also said it's always important to keep kids at the center of all decision making. Dr. Kane serves as superintendent in the Rockwood School District in suburban St. Louis. That theme of focusing on what's best for all kids was echoed by MSBA Executive Director Melissa Randall during her remarks to the recent MSBA Delegate Assembly.
You stayed laser focused on what you need to do for your children and for our children. Those 900,000 students belong to all of us, and we have an equal moral and ethical obligation to make sure that when they finish their education system here in Missouri, they are prepared for their futures.
Randall thanked board members for their service during some of the most challenging times they've ever faced. The state work group charged with studying what's known as competency-based learning has completed its work and issued its recommendations to the State Board of Education. The idea is that students should advance in their education based on their mastery of skills and expectations, not based on seat time. One of the co-facilitators of the group, Dr. Mike Fulton, presented a session on the issue during MSBA's recent Igniting Great Ideas Summit, and he described the competency-based learning approach.
Public schools exist for a reason. It's to provide access for every child in our state to a great education that gets them ready for their future. Competency-based learning is not a program, it's a mindset that you use to solve complex problems that empower students to take control of their lives and be college, career, and workforce ready in ways that are customized.
The recommendations of the Success Ready Students Work Group include designing a competency-based assessment system for students, designing a competency-based accreditation system for school districts, and expanding business-to-education partnerships. Nominations are open for the Carter D. Ward Excellence in Advocacy Award. The award, named for MSBA's former executive director, is presented each year to a local board member who excels at advocating for public education. Nominations for the award, which will be presented at next year's legislative forum, are being accepted through August 31st. There's still time to submit proposed changes to MSBA's advocacy positions. Those position statements express to legislators, policymakers, the public, and the media where MSBA stands on issues like school board elections, charter school expansion, vouchers, and many others. Delegates will vote on proposed changes at the Fall Delegate Assembly this November in Kansas City. The deadline to submit new or revised position statements is August 31st. Join us in Kansas City at the Kansas City Convention Center November 3rd through the 5th for MSBA's annual conference in cooperation with the Missouri Association of School Administrators. This year's conference will include 3 general sessions, including keynote speaker Olympian Jackie Joyner-Kersey, more than 90 concurrent sessions, a one-day education expo, and much more. Registration information is available on the MSBA website. You can also register to attend the 2022 Midwest School Safety Summit to be held November 2nd and 3rd in Kansas City. This event is designed to provide information for those who govern and work in K-12 schools, colleges, and universities, as well as law enforcement officials and others working with MSBA member districts. Midwest School Safety Summit is presented by MSBA's Center for Education Safety and the Safe and Sound Schools organization. That's it for this month's edition of the MSBA Board Report. Thanks for allowing us to have some time at your board meeting, and so long from Columbia.
Okay, next up we will have our Prop S update, Mr. Jeremy Butler.
Good evening, board. I'm going to do a quick version tonight, and then we'll let Maggie talk a little bit about her skilled program, and then I'll stick around and ask any questions afterwards. 801 Corporate, so it's exciting times over at 801 Corporate. The administration building has moved over there. The kids start on Monday for the union people on the second floor, so it really is coming together. There's a lot of work still going on. As you can imagine, moving all these people into a building of that size is quite an undertaking. So, but I was there this morning. I've been spending more time there, and I can report happily that we're in a good place and continue to get better every day. So, the first floor breakout rooms, I've been talking about these on a couple different occasions. We do anticipate those to be done sometime in the fall of 22. There's still a section of the building that we're waiting on some steel. It's all up now and some folding partitions, but there'll be more information on that coming. But there is a small section where the Hoff construction is still actually working, but they'll be done soon. We had a couple of delivery issues arise. It's miscellaneous things like we all are dealing with right now, whether it be a couple of controllers for HVAC, a couple of pieces of door hardware, but we're working through those. We have a great team of people, and we're trying to find temporary solutions where we can, but in some cases we're just having to wait for some stuff to come in. So nothing major on that, but it is a challenge, and I know we've all talked about it at length in previous meetings. So Francis Howell North, every day the world changes at Francis Howell North, so I got some great pictures. I'll go through this fast. Exterior veneer has actually started. I drove by there before I came here, and red brick is on the front of the auditorium now, so when you drive by, you're starting to see what the actual building will look like, so it's exciting. Steel erection continues on the main and upper levels. Steel's going to be going on still for at least another 6 months out there. Still a lot of concrete work going on. We are starting to pour some of the upper level decks, and finally the end is in sight on our concrete slab work and getting that all wrapped up. Mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection ongoing in the classroom wing. That is well underway. There's duct work, there's electric conduits coming down, there's walls being built. So, you know, that is really getting some momentum down there. Tons of masons on site. We have 2 different masonry companies actually working, but there's hydro scaffolding all over and masons as far as you can see. So a lot of block work happening. A lot of it is still firewalls and interior masonry walls that you won't see once the building is done, but are an integral part of the structure of the building. We have actually started doing some roofing. We have some roofing done in the classroom wing along with the storm shelter, so that's important as we get into the fall weather, keep the water out. We can actually start talking about getting drywall going and taping and stuff like that. So exciting times. And then the gym block continues. The gyms we have some nice pictures of the gym, but these are very big gyms, and getting all the block work in there is moving right along. So here is the picture. We'll do a drone video in a minute, but you can see we've talked a lot about the parking lot. Better picture of this. This parking lot is done and is open. And I've talked at the last meeting, that is quite an undertaking by our friends at SM Wilson. They were able to get this done. You've heard me say it's 4 to 5 months worth of work that we asked them to do in about 10 weeks. And they completed it on time, and the weather definitely helped. So that is open. This is all striped now. The parent drop-off, it has orange fence and caution fence around it. It looks a lot different than this, but because of transition day went great from what I've heard, and no issues to report, but they will be parking on this. They will be picking up kids on this. This is the permanent student parking lot that will exist forever. So it's exciting. This is actually the storm shelter now with the roof on it. So we've talked a lot about our storm shelter and our precast. Again, this is something that's now required by building code, but this will house all of the students and all of the staff for that building or for that high school in case of a severe weather event. So this is where they would actually go and shelter in place. Here we actually see that this is the main gymnasium being built. One of my personal favorite things about this school is you will actually walk into the gym on the mezzanine level, which is a really cool feel. It'll kind of have a college feel to it, but these are the main doors. If we think of Francis Howell High School, we walk into their gymnasium. At Francis Howell North, you'll walk in, but you'll actually walk in at the upper level. So you'll kind of look down on the gym when you walk in. It's a very nice feature of the school. Here we can see some of the more gym being built and just how much work is going on. This is acoustical decking that you see here that's perforated. That won't look like that when it's done, but it does help keep the acoustics down in the gym. So we're doing everything we can to make the gym be quiet. Keep going here. Some more steel going up. You can see the steel is continuing to move this way. Again, we're looking away. Henderson's behind us in this photo. Here's where we start to see just how much work's going on in the classrooms. You can see we're getting actually walls built, duct work hung, fire sprinkler systems are actually going in. So, in one side of the building, we haven't even put the steel up yet, and another side, we're building classroom walls. So we're working our way down, but there's a lot of work happening in those classroom areas. Some more pictures of the slab on grades getting ready to get poured. Here's the drone video. New parking lot. This arch here is the gymnasium. This is a big set of windows that you actually look into the gym. This is the large gym. This is the practice gym. Here's the storm shelter. Again, Henderson's over here. Give you a bearing. So we call the classroom addition. Moving right along. Call it the U. It's 2 stories. Science classrooms are actually in this area right here. This is where the football field will sit, right above facing. This area will all have steel put in. It's not installed yet, but you can see we're moving this way with the crane and the iron. This is the areas where you see a lot of the classrooms being built. These roofs are actually installed right now. These are the areas where we see ductwork being installed and stuff like that. So we continue to move this way from this part forward. This is actually where the buses will line up when the building is done over in this area here. The buses will come around, they'll stack here. The student entrance is right there. Football field's going here. Here we see the gyms again. Here's where the buses will be. And then the front of the school is actually right here, the big storm shelter. So exciting. Everyone's always welcome to take tours. Some of the board members have taken a tour. It was great. I know Mr. Cook was out there the other day, and we drove him around a little bit. SM Wilson has a nice gator, so you don't even have to get out of it if you don't want to. So it's quite enjoyable. Some of the staff took tours too this week for some of the Francis Howell North staff. We had about 80, 90 staff go through, and they were excited. So it was a fun thing to kind of show off the progress of the building. So I'm going to turn it over. I'll hit on this real quick. Allowances, escalation allowance still looks very good. We got about $1 million still left in the escalation allowance that we haven't spent. Our GMP allowance, we've spent most of that use to date, which is what we always expected to do. Again, we keep these dials just in the effort of transparency to show where things are financially. The project's about 31.1% been billed to date, which is just about where we would expect to be, where progress is at. So I'm going to turn it over to Maggie Farrell, who's with SM Wilson, and she's going to talk a little bit about the skilled program that he was involved with, and then I'll stay around if you have any questions.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Maggie Farrell. As Jeremy mentioned, I'm the Diversity and HR Manager with SM Wilson, and I've been working closely with our project team over at Francis Howell North to coordinate our skilled program with your students. Through Skilled, which is SM Wilson's construction career education program, we provide hands-on opportunities to integrate academic learning and focus on future employment in the architectural, engineering, and construction industry. And Skilled's mission is to inspire the future of construction. This three-pronged program supports individuals from all experience levels, from pre-K students to our workforce professionals, to discover, develop, and elevate their skills. And we know that increasing awareness and exposure to construction careers will help us to build a more diverse talent pipeline in our industry and also address the skilled workforce shortage. Over the past couple of months, we've implemented several skilled programs, including multiple sessions of Build and Tell for Henderson Elementary students, the installation of 2 skilled art beams, along with the summer shadowing program that you heard about with Sanjana and Sam. These are some photos from some of the recent skilled events. So through Build and Tell, we provided opportunities for the students at Henderson Elementary to meet the project team and have a close-up view of the construction site while they were able to visit the job site trailer and learn about different types of construction equipment, technology, and careers in construction. And in July, we installed 2 art beams. One is filled with handprints from the first graduating class of the new high school, and the other has handprints from Hackman Early Childhood Center students that will be the first class to start in and then graduate from the new high school. And then we also hosted our first skilled summer shadowing program, and that's been a really unique learning opportunity that we developed for 2 students within the district that were either incoming or graduating seniors to learn more about the construction process and career opportunities in the industry. So as mentioned earlier, Sanjana Vandana Parthi, she's the class of 2022 from Francis Howell North, and Sam Sturgis, class of 2023 from Francis Howell Central, spent about 50 hours over the course of 2 weeks with our project team out on site. During that time, they had the opportunity to walk the job site regularly, to learn more about the work that was being done on the project, and they were able to experience how things were progressing very quickly over a very busy summer on the project. And they also heard from multiple team members about various responsibilities within the project team and saw that each person really plays an important role in contributing to the success of the project. They spent some time learning about many of the skilled trades that are on site as well, and had an opportunity to get involved with some of the innovative construction technology, including drones and 360 camera and things like that. And both of these students were just exceptional and wonderful participants in the program. We were honored to provide this opportunity with the support from the district for them. They had the drive and initiative to really make the most of their summer for a unique experience. And when asked if they would recommend this to other students, they said definitely and totally, especially if someone was curious about the construction industry or just wanted to learn something new. Sam already shared a bit about some of his takeaways from the program. They also talked about learning more about safety, the importance of communication, respect, and having initiative. So we are grateful for the opportunity tonight to share with you about the skilled program and for the district's support. As Katie mentioned earlier, the Build My Future event, we were able to be involved in that as well, and that was amazing. Looking forward to that next year. And then I also just wanted to publicly recognize the project team members that have been really instrumental in implementing the skilled program with the students in the district, particularly those that served as mentors for Sam and Sanjana this summer, and that was Kevin Reese, Gerardo Lopez, and Darcy Latham. Any questions?
Board, any comments, questions?
Thank you.
I just have a question for Jim. On the escalation allowance, what materials are eligible and how much, and the quantity of those are still left?
Yeah, that's a good question. So hopefully very few. So if we've put it into a bid package for a subcontractor, it is not pertaining to the escalation allowance. So the painter, he can't come back and say, hey, Sherwin-Williams hit me with the 30% upcharge, I'm passing that on to the district. So that is not allowed. They are under contract, that is locked in. The escalation allowance was really in an effort when, if you remember, there were some packages that weren't bid out completely that we had to go back and get more bids for. We were concerned that toilet partitions had raised in price, so we had an escalation allowance to help offset some of those. I actually would fully expect that escalation allowance to just roll pretty soon to the bottom line and be a credit to the district. But we are not subject to, there are a few exceptions to that, Mr. Cook. So maybe, I think asphalt, we're actually using the MODOT index for some things, but it's been pretty steady. So, but 98, 99% of all the materials, it will not and cannot apply to, they are locked in. So I hope that kind of answers your question. Okay, yeah.
So I have a couple questions here, probably not so much directed towards you, but more
Sure.
for Dr. Ramos and Dr. Hawk. I'm just curious, I know you've done a lot of roundtables, and I wouldn't expect you to have compiled that, but I am curious on all the projects that we have kind of in the list ready to go that we're looking at. We were waiting on the demographic survey, so I was curious if there's any updates to that.
The district has just received the final draft of that, and so the process is that the leadership team will look through it and try and digest it, and then work with the Board of Education here, hopefully in the next month or so, to share it with you, and hopefully to do that in a work session where we can talk about it, get feedback, discuss next steps, and that becomes a part of the conversation on how we move forward with some of the projects that remain from Prop S. If we're talking about additions in certain buildings, how does the demographic study impact that? Nobody wants to hear it or talk about it, but several times we heard the idea of boundary changes come up during that meeting. So taking into consideration our current capacity of the buildings we have, do we need to add additional classroom space to certain buildings? Could there be some changes? And all of that's part of the bigger picture as we make a final recommendation for moving forward.
Thank you. I guess my next question is just, you're doing your position, Dr. Huck, you're doing your position. Has there been any work done to really better understand what happened during Prop S and what we can change for the future to make things better?
We are in the process of compiling and have the beginning of our first draft of kind of the overview from the beginning of Prop S to today. What happened, where did price escalations occur, and what are lessons learned. We're just in the beginning of that stage of trying to really analyze what the lessons learned were. And we talked in our Finance and Audit Committee about what is the best way to address the concerns of our constituents and our public and regain that trust. We feel that one way to do that will be to take that work, work possibly with the Finance and Audit Committee to find out if we're headed in the right direction, if we are capturing all of those concepts, and then maybe do some outside consulting, trying to get some input from, there are a variety of sources that we could look to for policy guidance, for financial guidance, for oversight of processes. We see our conversation in the Finance and Audit Committee was that our primary concern was about processes that were in place that allowed this to transpire and ensuring that we're changing our processes, systems, and policies to shore up things for the future for the district.
Thank you. Hey, Jeremy, I just had a question. I seen last week they had a safety job site luncheon. I'm just curious, how many construction personnel do we have on site there, approximately?
It varies. Let's say 50 to 100 every day. I would say we're probably on site. Yeah, I can get those exact numbers from you if you'd like them. The safety lunch though is well attended. I don't know if
that's when people show up.
There were hundreds of people there, I believe. Yeah, if you have free barbecue, they're going to come from all over the place. So I'm glad you highlighted that. We don't talk about safety just because we don't want to jinx anything, but they continue to have 0 lost time accidents on that job site, which is unbelievable for the amount of man hours worked. I was even commenting to Mr. Cook, what a clean job site. You walk when you go around, there's not a piece of trash anywhere. And all that is safety stuff. But they had a great luncheon. They celebrated all the safety. They obviously, when they hit certain milestones, they have a luncheon, they bring all the guys in, they feed them, they talk about safety and toolbox talk. So SM Wilson is top notch when it comes to that stuff, and that safety lunch was very well attended, and everyone was happy and had full stomach. So, yeah. Thanks for bringing that up.
Any other questions, comments, board? Thank you. All right, next board, I would like a motion to approve the consent agenda for August 18th, 2022 as presented. Is that Mr. Cook, Mr. Lane? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Board, I would like a motion to approve the July 2022 monthly financial report as presented.
So moved.
Stiglich and Bertrand. Dr. Hawk?
Just wanted to highlight a few items with the financial report. It looks quite a bit different than it has. Thank you. Highlighting a few items for our financial report. It does have a different look than it has in the past. Our finance team in our office worked very hard on trying to simplify the report. It is still a bit lengthy, but the first 2.5, 3 pages are directions for reading and interpreting the charts and graphs at the back. That will soon be an appendix that will work with the charts and graphs. And our goal is to have just a couple of page report highlighting the major work that's taking place in the office that month and upcoming events to try to help educate the public and the board as to the items that are really going to impact our finance. We took this report to the Finance and Audit Committee. They had a long meeting. I think we were there for about 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 45 minutes on Tuesday night. And they worked very hard on giving us some feedback on the report. They suggested that we simplify even further. Maybe we still have too many charts and graphs. Maybe it's still too much for people to have to read. And we're going to, over the next few months, try out some different things until we find the just right fit for us. It might be that we have some standard reports that you would see each month, and then also some information forward-facing on our website, and then highlight focus areas as they're a part of the discussion. One thing that I do want to highlight from the report, and also coming up in our ASBR, we ended the year, submitted our ASBR, and have a fund balance this year of 19.79%. That is up from last year significantly. It is higher than was predicted in the spring, but it's still not where we would like to see things in order to feel confident about our cash flow. We had a lot of conversation about cash flow and about investing, what we could do to avoid taking out loans in the fall, tax anticipation notes in order to meet payroll. That's happened the past 2 years. We feel like we have a short-term workaround to avoid that this year, but it's kind of a Band-Aid approach. We are working on developing a long-range strategic plan so that we can avoid doing that in the future. We shouldn't have to borrow money to make payroll. Additionally, we talked about the importance of our making sure that our Fund 4, our capital fund, has an adequate balance to be able to meet our needs for the coming year, and also to be able to be prepared for unexpected disasters like a catastrophic HVAC failure in a building. That's not going to be cheap, and it's also not going to be budgeted. So we need to have a little bit of money in the bank, in our savings account, so to speak, to be able to take care of those issues. An issue that probably no one is excited about but me is a lot of conversation about moving from from an accrual basis of accounting to a cash basis. What that basically would mean would be that we will be in alignment with the rest of the state of Missouri. A cash basis of accounting is how almost every school district in Missouri, except for 10, do their accounting. It's what we do all year long, and then we spend a couple of months at the end of the year changing things to an accrual format for the sake of being audited and having an accrual report. We've worked with the bankers, DESE, our bond underwriters, the auditor, anyone we could think of who might care, to see if there was any reason to stick with an accrual basis, and basically there's not that we could find. So next month we'll be bringing that recommendation to you to request making that official to move from a from an accrual to a cash basis of accounting. And the great thing is it's going to buy us about 2.5 months of work, and so Cindy will be so busy and our finance team working on other projects that we think will be really valuable for the district. We also just brought up a few items. We talked about transportation efficiency ratings and how we could save money for the district by improving our transportation efficiency. Jen Simpson has been working on that very hard. This year, COVID has made it really hard to run an efficient transportation situation, and that you can tell when you compare ourselves to other school districts as well. The reason that matters, not only are you spending more money on your transportation on a monthly basis or a daily basis just to get your kids to and from school, but you are also being penalized if you exceed 104% efficiency rating, and we're at about 141%. So we are suffering a penalty for that we want to get rid of so we can have our full transportation funding. So that's just the beginning of that work in that Finance and Audit Committee. There will be a lot of work with a lot of input from community members throughout the year, because it will involve change, and change is sometimes hard, especially if it involves a school bus. And the last thing that we talked about was our finance, and with the Finance and Audit Committee was the Prop-S review that I alluded to earlier. Really trying to dig in and think about what can we do from that financial and audit perspective to be able to provide the taxpayers with the security of knowing that we made some mistakes in the way things were done. We've learned some lessons, and we are going to make some changes to the way we do business to improve things going forward. I feel very confident as a new person coming in that is well underway. Trying to figure out how to present that to everyone will be the grand challenge that we'll be working through the next little bit. Do you have any questions that I can answer?
Just one point of clarification. We'll still be getting audited with a cash-based system versus a accrual system, correct?
Yes, we would be audited on a cash basis. Did I say just the opposite? Very likely. I did in our notes, so
Perfect.
Thank you for cleaning that
up. Just want to
up.
clarify.
Yes, thank you.
Anyone else, board? Appreciate that update. All right. Any other questions, discussion? We're good? All right. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Board, I'd like a motion to approve the return to school plan as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Bertrand, Ms. Stiglich. Dr. Rompus.
Board members, as one of our ESSER requirements, every 6 months we provide you with an update on our return to school plan for approval by the Board of Education. I'm really thrilled for you, for our parents and patrons, our staff, and our students that after almost 2.5 years, this plan really reinforces a return to normal, or our pre-pandemic policies, procedures, and protocols. The plan is really driven by a belief that moving forward we'll respond to COVID as we would other more common illnesses, that we will respond, but that will be focused at the most appropriate level based on the cases that we're seeing, if we are seeing them in a specific classroom, building, or a grade level. So this here just highlights a couple of the points that are listed in the plan that's loaded that we will also distribute to our entire community tomorrow following Board of Approval this evening. It highlights again that ultimately if you're sick or experiencing symptoms, you need to stay home. That's going to be the greatest thing you can do to protect others within the district. We are still going to track positive cases. So when a positive case is identified, we're going to ask parents or a staff member to contact the school nurse, who will be the person tracking that information for us as we start the school year. We continue to have a mask optional policy. If that's the choice you want to make as an individual, you're more than welcome to do so. We have no requirement throughout the district, though, related to masks. We discontinued actually last spring contact tracing and quarantine, and that was in line with when St. Charles County discontinued that practice as well. Some additional changes, though, that we are making to that are regarding our parent guardian notification around positive cases, as well as the use of the COVID-19 dashboard, which we're discontinuing. The reality for us since, I'd say, mid last spring is that the dashboard and positive case communication are really no longer effective. We know that many people are either no longer testing or they're testing at home. They're using at-home tests, which leads to significant underreporting. So we know that the dashboard has not really been an accurate reflection of the number of cases that we have within the district. In addition, when we're identifying a potential exposure, you look back 48 hours from before the positive case's symptoms began. By the time people get that information, they get tested, they share that information with the school, and now that you're able to return on day 6, generally we're beyond that period of time, and it's almost too late to notify people at school that they were potentially exposed. And so we don't see that being the best way to communicate moving forward with our families around COVID. We are open, we understand that certain families have health conditions or situations where maybe you do need that information and it's important for the safety of your family. We encourage those people to reach out to the school nurse, to an administrator, and we'll do our best to communicate specifically with those families if that's information that they need. We will continue to monitor it. The reason we're looking at the positive cases is so that we can see at a glance, both at the building level and at the district level, if we are seeing a spike or a surge in cases. And as I said, we will be responsive when that happens at the appropriate level. So if there's a specific class that has an increase in cases, then we may start communicating specifically with the parents of that class because there's been an increase in cases, or a grade level, or if that happened to be an entire building. But really looking at how we can be responsive to our families and to our students and staff, but do it in a way that is really based on the number of cases that we have within the district. So that's a highlight of what we're changing. Really, it's how we ended last year, but really even eliminating some of the last mitigation strategies we had, which the biggest one I would say would be welcoming our parents and our families back into our schools. And those of you that have had the opportunity this week to attend any of our Welcome Back to School events, open houses, they feel busier than I've ever experienced, and I think part of that is just people are anxious to be back in our buildings and be a part of the education process for their students.
Dr. Ross, I have one question. If someone does test positive, it says they'll be excluded from school for 5 days. Is that an excused absence?
At this time, we still understand that the state will allow us to record that absence as a COVID-related absence, and as long as the student is completing the work while they're out, they will be excused and they'll be given credit for those days, and we'll continue to use that code at the school level. That's also part of why we report it until the time when DESE tells us that that no longer is acceptable.
Perfect, thank you. Board, any other questions, comments? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Board, I'd like a motion to approve the purchases over $7,500 as presented.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Lang and Mr. Lang. Any discussion, board? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Board, I'd like a motion to approve the purchase over $7,500 worldwide technology as presented.
Second.
Mr. Cook, Mr. Bertrand. I will be abstaining from this vote. Any discussion, board? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Board, I would like a motion to approve the 2021-2022 Annual Secretary of the Board Report as presented. Mr. Bertrand and Mr. Kirk. Any discussion, board, on this? I know Dr. Hawk had touched base on it a little bit ago. Okay.
Yep.
What? All right.
Dr. Hawk, you mentioned that we ended at 19%. That's pretty good. We're getting better, but maybe we want to be a little. What's the kind of the range that the other schools in the state normally target?
Typically, mid-20s is a good number, but because of our unique situation where a good chunk of our funding is coming from our local tax dollars, we are in a different situation than the schools that are primarily funded with state money. Knowing that all that money comes up front, we need to make, and it's not trickling in every month. Additionally, the money that we are getting on a monthly basis is from the state, is being used where some of our bond proceeds are being taken out of that to get a better bond rating, and we have to reimburse that. We are working very hard on a cash flow analysis with one of our investors, also with the Frontline software program that we use for to help us with our financial management analysis to determine the sweet spot, so to speak, for our district. We have some preliminary guesses that are pretty close to those state numbers, but we will have that as a coming attraction soon as a recommendation for us. It looks like it will be in the 20s range so far, but we are really wanting to analyze that as we go through the year. We have a couple of little dashboards where we're updating every month all of our cash flow issues and really looking at how does that compare to how we would end in June. And we'll have some recommendations on the best number for that for the district. It will, and when it comes budget time, that will be a key important number that we will have to think about when we build our budget. Making sure that we have the money for that in place to make sure we can get through the year without having to borrow money would be my recommendation. And also making sure that we're not having to do large transfers at the end of the year into our fund for our capital improvement fund. That's what we do, how we've been functioning the last 4 years or so. Which makes it hard because you're just kind of running yourself to zero, filling it back up at the end of the year, and then running to zero. We'd like to get to a place where we would be able to have a fund balance in Fund 4 and a good fund balance in our operating fund and be able to give great raises and meet our needs. And we're just going to work very closely with everyone to be able to do that. I have confidence that we'll get there. It's just going to be a lot of work and working together. The ASBR paints a really great picture. We've got 20 years of summary historical data where you can kind of see what's happened to us over time from all of the old ASBRs in one little spreadsheet, and it paints a powerful picture to start thinking about what we want to do. You can see over a 20-year trend, Francis Howell's finances, it's just been kind of a little roller coaster ride that we've been on, and we want to try to even that out a bit for ourselves.
Thank you.
Dr. Hawk, I have one question. You had mentioned that we're going to be changing from one basis to going to a cash basis. Based on our current policies, are we going to be making tons of policy changes? Because I know right now, don't we have a policy saying how much money we have to have in our fund balance?
Our current policy, it's a minimum amount that our goal is to achieve. I believe it's 15%. If I recall, I don't have that committed 100% to memory. But I do think that's an area that we need to take a look at moving forward. I'm not quite ready to say what I think that number should be changed to, but I do think that's some of the work that we need to have this year. And whenever we make that vote next week or next month, we'll do a little better research to see what other places, if there are any other policies that will impact.
Okay, thank you very much.
Anyone else? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up, we have superintendent comments.
Board members, the first thing I would like to recognize is we welcomed 139 new teachers to the district last week. And if you've never had the opportunity to step into that room, a mix of veterans, first-year teachers, and the energy and the excitement they bring, excited to become a part of the Francis Howell School District family. A large number of directors, curriculum coordinators, teacher leaders, and other people present to the group and work with them throughout the week, our building administrators. I do want to recognize Dr. Jessie Altman, our Director of Adult Learning, because she actually plans and organizes the entire week of new educator orientation. It's a significant undertaking, but a high-quality experience that I think rivals any introduction to teaching of any school district. So it was exciting to be a part of that and get to be in person with that large group and to welcome them to the district. This week, we welcomed back our returning teachers and staff. So it's been a week of preparation, meetings, professional development, training, team building mixed in, really focusing on our culture and climate, as over 2,000 employees prepare to welcome our students back next year. There's an incredible energy in the district right now, and we'll have over 16,000 students here on Monday, and we can't wait to welcome them back. As several of our patrons mentioned, we did have on August 10th our first Citizen Roundtable. We felt that it was a very positive, successful event. We continue to get positive feedback. The survey still remains open. If you didn't attend that evening and would like to provide input based on the same questions that we used that night, it's available online. We also get emails and other information that both people who participated and others have shared with us. We have synthesized the feedback from that evening, and we'll combine that with the information from the surveys, so that information can be shared with our facilities committee, our Prop S group, our district leadership team, to go through a cycle of understanding the information, talking about next steps, sharing that with the board to get additional feedback, so that ultimately we can develop a recommendation to you for moving forward with everything from Prop S. At the end of the event that night, we had people fill out a feedback form to give us some information. Overall, people gave a rating of 4.7 out of 5. 100% of the participants felt that their voice was heard as part of it. The overall understanding of Prop S increased 1 point for everybody who filled it out. And 95% of the people said that they would be interested in participating in another roundtable event based on another topic. So we do think that it was a positive event. And we got some good feedback also just related to the process, with the idea that we could do some recruiting there for open positions that we have in the district moving forward. So maybe having an HR table. People liked the data that was there, and there's definitely requests to have more data to use in the decision making that we do. And that's something that we do, and I think we can be more open about that data and sharing it with others. People talked about including students in the discussions, depending on the topic that's going on, and then allowing potential time for a Q&A afterward, whether it's with administrators and with board members. That happened informally that evening, but that could become also a formal part of the process. So thank you to those of you that attended and others. We know that it was not the ideal time period, given it was the week before everybody returned this week for all the events that are taking place, but we'll continue to do these throughout the year. We do ask for our community's help. As several people mentioned tonight, we can continue to have a large number of support staff positions open in the district, specifically para-educator positions, custodians. We're always recruiting bus drivers and monitors, as well as substitute teachers. And so please share that with everyone you know. It's on all of our social media. It's on the website. We'll continue to recruit. We know that'll be an ongoing concern for us throughout the school year. I want to recognize the Sager Middle School Jazz Band. They've been selected by the Missouri Music Educators Association to perform at the 85th MMEA conference that'll take place this coming January. This is one of the highest honors that a Missouri school district band can receive, and it's an even bigger honor because this is only the second middle school jazz band ever selected to perform. It's a competitive audition process, and so they will perform down at the lake in January, and they'll also do a preview event in January, and that date and time will be published so that people that may not be able to travel for the event during the day will get to hear the performance here. We want to keep reminding our families that the federal program that provided free school lunches the past several years has ended. Families that have demonstrated financial need have to apply to continue receiving free and reduced lunch this year, and that's important. We want to offer that to our students, and so it's available on our website. It's available at all of our buildings. It's offered in multiple languages, so we will continue to communicate that, and we need the help of all of our patrons and families to make sure that we're sharing that information. And the last thing is I want to thank, we do throughout the summer, our elementary schools all offer a kindergarten success program. At each building, this is a 3-day opportunity where our youngest, newest learners get to come and get to meet their teachers. There's some evaluation that's done. They get to learn about the school and help with some of that anxiety of coming to school for the first time. It's incredibly successful, and I just want to thank all the educators that helped make that happen over the last few weeks as we prepared for school. And that's my comments for this evening.
Okay, next up we have board comments and requests. I just wanted to start out by welcome everyone back to school. I know my daughters are excited. And to echo Dr. Rumpus, the vibe and energy out in our buildings and district is incredible. From transition day to fall parent athletic meetings to all the things. So I'm looking forward to an amazing year ahead. Anyone else have any comments?
I have a couple. First of all, I would like to shout out to Friends of Children. I know that this year it's been kind of hard, the fact that they haven't been able to have their annual fundraiser. So I would like to plug for them that if you could please look forward to that. I saw Miss Hill leave, so I wanted to, Francine leave, so I wanted to say, hey, if anybody's interested in learning more about that organization, Friends of Children, it's a great place. As a school nurse, we used it all the time, and I would love to say thank you to FEGA for continuing to support that program. The other thing I would agree, I've visited several of my buddy schools already, and I would agree with Mrs. Lane and Mrs. Keener, Ms. Keener, that our schools are off to a great start and the excitement is finally back. For the first time, I feel it also. So I would like to thank everybody in this administration, our teachers, our Board of Education, our patrons for helping make that happen. I know who that feels when your phone goes off in the middle, so I just want to say I've been there, done that.
Any other comments, requests, boards? Okay. And since we did not finish our closed session agenda, board, I would like a motion to return back to closed. I'm sorry, was that Mr. Cook? Two people were talking during. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.